My wife came home at 3 a.m., and the lie fell apart. Broken face. New passcode. The porch light made the smear of mascara look like soot. Madison, Maddie to me, Mads to everyone else, stumbled in clutching her phone like it was a rosary. Tripped on the curb, she said, lips split, knuckles scraped. I'd been on the couch, fake asleep, counting the minutes since midnight. The first thing I noticed wasn't the blood. It was the bar stamp on her wrist and the new lock screen I didn't recognize. She smelled like cinnamon whiskey and someone else's cologne, sharp, woodsy, not mine. Uber dropped me on the wrong block, my phone died, she said, plugging it in with shaking hands. The dead phone chimed alive, at 82%. Weird, I said. She rolled her eyes like I'd just accused her of tax fraud. I pressed a clean towel to her mouth, she flinched, then relaxed into it, eyes shining. Can you not be controlling right now? She whispered. Girls' night, Ethan. Not a congressional hearing. When I asked why she needed a new passcode, she shrugged. Work made us update. Then she added, almost rehearsed, you know, lots of couples don't freak out about a little independence. It's normal. The way she said normal made my stomach turn. I'd heard that word used as a crowbar before. We moved to the kitchen. I dabbed peroxide. She hissed, then laughed a little too loud. God, you're such a dad. I wanted to say I was your husband, not your hall monitor, but the room felt off-kilter, like furniture after an earthquake. Still there, just not where you left it. Her phone lit up face down. Reflex. I shouldn't have flipped it. I did. A preview? You good? You buy it. From Christina, a name I'd never seen in her contacts. My mouth went cotton dry. Who's Christina? I asked. She snatched the phone, hands trembling. A girl from Pilates, she said. She was making sure I got home okay. The message vaporized, the chat thread was gone. Maddie folded, literally, on her knees on the kitchen tile. Ethan, please. I'm exhausted. Can we not do this? She crawled closer, head on my thigh, tears soaking through my joggers. You've been distant, she murmured. We never go out. I needed to feel fun. Then, soft and dangerous. Maybe we should talk about, like, opening things up. People our age do it all the time. It could make us stronger. The idea landed like a brick. I knew that move, ask forgiveness by calling it permission. When I didn't answer, she pivoted. Fine. If you think I'm cheating, say it. She stood, sudden fury in her face. You want me to text my friends? Take a lie detector? What? She was angry, brazen, and then bang, the mask slipped. Her shoulders shook. I fell, she whispered again, but it sounded like rehearsal, not truth. She showered. I cleaned the blood from the floor, from the towel, from my hands. In bed, she slid a calf over mine, damp skin, vanilla body wash, the familiar heat of her thigh against me, a flicker of what used to be ours. See, she breathed into my neck, a kiss like a band-aid. We're okay. It should have soothed. Instead, the kiss felt staged, like a scene she'd been given notes on. I stared at the ceiling fan and replayed the night. The bar stamp. The passcode. Christina. The way she kept saying normal. My gut said the curb didn't do that to her mouth. My gut said someone else did, and not with a fist. And if that's where my head was going, I needed facts, not vibes. Somewhere between 3:31 and dawn, a resolve clicked into place. I was going to pull the thread, even if it unraveled the whole sweater. The next morning, Maddie was all sunshine and headache. She iced her split lip, posted a boomerang of her smoothie, and kissed my cheek like we were an ad for forgiveness. I made coffee and did the calm husband thing. Meanwhile, my brain was running a private CSI episode. I started with the bar stamp. A quick search showed the place runs a retro night, on Thursdays that ends at 2, the stamp color changes hourly. Hers said 1 a.m. Which would have been fine, if she hadn't rolled in at 3. Then I remembered the notification. You good? He buy it? From Christina. If Christina was Pilates, I'm a golden retriever. Maddie set her phone on the counter and hopped in the shower. I told myself I wasn't going to snoop. Then the screen lit up again. New message from Christina. Next time hotel, not car, lol. I felt my throat close. I'm not proud. I opened the thread with the dumb hope it would be a prank. It wasn't. There were kissy selfies, a mirror pic of Maddie in a bodycon dress I'd never seen, and a shot of a hotel headboard I 100% recognized from downtown, plus a man's forearm, older, freckled, wedding band tan line. The name at the top wasn't Christina anymore, it had switched to Chris. She toggled the contact card mid-thread. I could feel the narrative rewire. Last night's open-minded talk, the normal speech, all of it looking like retroactive permission for a play already in motion. I scrolled. Their messages were a mix of logistics and heat. Not explicit but enough to make my ears burn. Same cologne tonight, it lingers on my hair. Gray suit again? God, the elevator kiss. The kind of crumbs you can smell. A neck pressed to a lapel, her laugh in a hallway, a hotel key card tapping green. I could almost feel the print of his hand on her waist, the way she angles her chin when she wants to be watched. Light in the window, her biting his shoulder to keep quiet. It was intimate in a way that hurt more than graphic would have, like finding your favorite shirt on someone else's back. There were older messages too. Work trips. New York again, same couple? You owe me a drink for surviving the conference. I hid a photo I couldn't unsee. Maddie half under a hotel bedsheet, hair a mess, someone's knee in frame, a second wine glass on the nightstand. The caption, be good. Or don't. My stomach flipped. She told me once she thought couples were kinda hot in theory. Apparently theory had tenure. The cast expanded with every swipe. A gym thread with a divorced guy 15 years older. Lunch pics at a steakhouse. You gotta try this pork chop. And a selfie of their hands almost touching over the table. She'd labeled him Coach, which would have been funny if it didn't feel like a joke on me. Then came the worst twist. A video from months ago shot low from a car seat. Streetlights strobed the inside of the SUV. Maddie's voice, breathy, laughing, shows stop I have to go, followed by the rustle of clothes and that little gasp I know like my own name. No faces, just enough. They said goodnight. He told her to text when she was safe. She replied with a heart and a hotel emoji. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. I put it back exactly where she'd left it and stared at the backsplash until the grout lines blurred. I thought about every time she'd said, "You've been distant," and how I tried to close the gap by being gentle, patient, decent. She'd been filling that gap with plot. And right when she finally stumbled in at 3 a.m., face busted and crying, I'd believed the curb more than the stranger. That was the worst part. How much of me still wanted to believe her even as the evidence stacked like dirty dishes? When she came out in a robe, steam following her, I was sitting with my coffee like a ghost. You okay? She asked, tying the belt. Vanilla lotion, damp hair. My wife, my house, my life. Mads, I said, voice steady. Who's Chris? The way her pupils widened before she smiled, that single beat, told the truth before her mouth did. She smiled anyway. A girl from Pilates. She said it so easily, like the word girl could rewrite the video in the car. I wish I could say I exploded. I didn't. I set the cup down and said, we're going to talk. All of it. And please don't tell me this is normal. Somewhere in my head, a memory rose up of a college reunion where one of her friends had joked about Maddie's wild years, while I stood there nodding like a muppet, not realizing the timeline she was describing swallowed me whole. I felt the same sick heat now, like the room knew something I didn't. Ethan, she said, and there was anger in it, bright and brazen. You're being crazy. She stepped closer, put my hand on her hip like a stage direction. Let me show you we're fine. And for a flicker, with her mouth near my ear, I almost fell for it. The muscle memory, the warmth, the home of it. Then my phone buzzed with a new email, hotel receipt forwarded from our joint account, dated last night. 2 guests. 1 room. So yeah, disclosure. Not a confession. A paper trail. And suddenly, I wasn't a husband in a fog anymore. I was a man holding a map out of it. I didn't do a movie scene. No yelling, no plate smashing. I put her hotel receipt on the table like a quiz I already knew the answers to, and asked again calm, who's Chris? She flicked her eyes from the email to me and back, took a breath and went with the bold-face version. You are so dramatic, Ethan. People in long relationships do this. It's normal. She actually said the word like saying it 3 times would make the ghost disappear. I told her I'd seen the messages. The contact that was Christina, until it turned into Chris. The headboard I recognized. The elevator kiss comments. She pivoted hard into righteous anger, chin up. So you snooped? Great. Congrats. Want a medal? Then just as fast she crumpled, dropped to her knees on the kitchen tile, grabbed my hands and pressed them to her cheeks. Please, Ethan. Please. I was drunk. I was confused. You've been distant. I needed to feel wanted. Her voice broke on wanted and, God help me, a piece of me broke with it. She started stacking excuses like Jenga blocks. It was a girl's night that got messy. It was closure with an old friend. It was one time, except then it wasn't, because when I asked about the hotel photo from last month, her eyes did the micro-flinch thing again and she said, okay, twice. Maybe 3. But it didn't mean anything. Then the wild card, what if we just open up? Couples do it after kids, after dry spells to make things fair. I heard a stranger's Reddit post come out of her mouth almost word for word and felt my stomach turn. It wasn't a plan, it was retroactive permission. Who is he? I asked. She wiped her eyes and said, he's older, divorced, from the gym. Of course. Steakhouse lunches. The pork chop recommendation. The friendly texting that becomes logistics, the innocent leftovers in our fridge. It was like finding fingerprints on every doorknob in the house I thought was locked. Is that who split your lip? I said. She blinked, shook her head hard. I fell. Then quieter, we argued. In the car. I got out too fast and she stopped, looked at me like a stage actor who'd lost her line and defaulted back to fury. You're acting like a cop. You want me to list every man who ever flirted with me? You want a count. And suddenly, like a trapdoor, last winter's dinner with her college friends clicked into place. Wild years, the hush, the car ride home where she told me I was crazy for reading into it. My face got hot with the memory. She tried a tenderness speed run, hands on my chest, lips at my neck. A kiss like a band-aid, vanilla and apology. For a second I felt the old reflex tug me, her thigh sliding between mine, the familiar gravity of her. Then the car video from her phone flickered in my head, streetlights strobing, her voice breathy, a man's laugh low in the dark, and the gravity turned into freefall. I stepped back. No, I said. Not like this. That's when she went nuclear. You've been boring, Ethan. You don't take me out. You barely touch me. She lifted her chin, eyes bright with mean tears. Chris makes me feel alive. The words rang like a slap. I thought of the months I'd made dinner, planned date nights, booked cabins she canceled for work stress. I thought of the silent way I'd been trying to love her better while she outsourced the spark. My ears were buzzing. Okay, I said, voice flat. Here are my terms if you want any chance at this. Full disclosure, a written timeline, no contact with anyone you touched, therapy, STD panel, separate finances until trust is rebuilt, and you tell your parents and mine exactly why we're in crisis. No more spin. Consequences, not chaos. She blinked like I'd spoken another language, then laughed, a small, ugly sound. You're insane. Then, softer, calculating, maybe we can do some of that. I recognized the negotiation style. Offer fog until I settle for mist. Not this time. Her phone lit up. We good? He buy it. From Chris, because of course he texted the same line his alias sent last night. She lunged for the phone, I was faster. I thumbed out one sentence and hit send before she could stop me. I'm Ethan. And no. Then I forwarded the hotel receipt to our joint archive and, because revenge should be clean, not criminal, drafted a message to a contact I figured was his. You don't know me. You should. Not a threat. Sunlight. She sank into a chair, mascara running, muttering, You're ruining everything. I looked around at our kitchen, the wedding photos, the magnet from Charleston, the list of groceries in her handwriting, and realized everything had already been ruined. I just finally turned the lights on. If you've never tried to sleep beside someone who set your life on fire, it's like napping on a smoke alarm. Every rustle is a siren. Still, I did the dumb human thing, I tried to forgive her. I told myself marriages have seasons, that I'd been busy, that maybe we could stitch this. I drafted rules like I was writing a treaty. Timeline by Sunday, therapist by Wednesday, no contact starting now. She nodded at all of it, eager like a student angling for extra credit. Then she love-bombed, breakfast in bed, a playlist titled, Us, a candle that smelled like orange peel and hope. She texted me selfies from work, soft makeup, lips unbloodied, captioned, Your girl. It should have worked. It made me dizzy instead. I kept catching splinters. Her no contact lasted 11 hours. A muted buzz on the nightstand, her face going slack. Spam, she said and angled the screen away. At dinner she floated the open up pitch again, but with TED Talk voice. We could redefine fidelity in a modern way. My fork hit the plate. You want to retroactively legalize an affair, I said. She blinked, hurt morphing into irritation like oil into flame. You're obsessed with labels. I spiraled. I inspected myself like a crime scene. Am I boring? Soft around the middle? Enough money, enough surprises, enough anything? I reread old texts where she called me her anchor and felt like a ballast she'd kicked overboard. At 3 a.m. I googled therapists and booked the first Tuesday slot. I also did something petty but clean, found Chris's LinkedIn, triangulated a spouse from the tagged photos, and sent her the hotel receipt with one line, I'm sorry to be the one. Not a threat, not a rant. Sunlight and a seatbelt for whatever came next. Maddie flipped between brazen and broken like a light switch. Morning, you're smothering me. Afternoon, kneeling on the rug, mascara comet trails, whispering, I don't even know why I did it, Ethan. I'm a mess. Night, chin up, you're not perfect either. She started telling new backstory, how lonely she'd been, how her parents never modeled healthy boundaries, how she'd been experimenting with being wanted. It was both confession and branding exercise. Forgive me, I'm in rebrand. I kept a ledger. Not of sins, of efforts. Therapy booked? Check. Timeline? She gave me 3 bullet points and called it exhaustive. She sat there twirling the pen while I asked dates and places and watched her stories contradict in real time. Every gap she patched with I was drunk, or it's blurry. You know what wasn't blurry? The way my hands shook signing us up for STD tests. The way she insisted we go together like it was a couple's massage. Somewhere in there, the first panic attack hit. Grocery store. Frozen aisle. I saw a 6-pack of the cinnamon whiskey she wears like perfume and my chest just locked. I crouched between frozen peas and pizza bagels, counting tiles until a lady asked if I needed help. I said I was fine. I wasn't. I was a man learning that loving someone doesn't make you safe from them. That night, I told Maddie I couldn't be touched for a while. She rolled over with an exasperated sigh and muttered, so dramatic. I looked at the ceiling and realized forgiveness isn't a door you walk through together. It's a door she keeps trying to wedge open while lighting matches on the other side. Consequences travel fast. By noon, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't know. Hi, I'm Naomi, Chris's wife. Her voice was steady in the way a bridge is steady right before it collapses. I apologized for detonating her morning. She thanked me anyway. You're the first person who treated me like I wasn't crazy, she said, and then she cried, quiet and efficient, like she'd practiced. We compared receipts like coroners. Same hotel on 3 dates. Same elevator kiss texts. She said, he told me my jealousy was abusive. I almost laughed. Same script, different theater. After I hung up, I called my parents. Mom, Linda, drove over with a casserole like grief could be brined. Dad, Gary, stood in our kitchen, hands on his belt, taking in the magnets, the wedding photo, the silence. Son, he said, you don't fix a cracked windshield by driving faster. He hugged me so hard my ribs complained. Mom didn't ask for details. She packed an overnight bag for me with the competence of a seasoned nurse and put it by the door just in case. Maddie's family was a different show. Her mom, Cheryl, FaceTimed from a wine bar at 3 p.m., already flushed. Sweetie, you're overreacting, she told me while her boyfriend Ron shouted about tequila shots in the background. Men slip. Women slip. We survived the 90s. Brooklyn, Maddie's sister, texted, OMG, are you guys open now? That's like, modern. It felt less like support and more like brand strategy. Flawed and strange didn't begin to cover it. Sunlight did its thing. With accounts separated, I could see patterns. A secret credit card linked to a P.O. box. Venmo notes to Coach with peach and sweat emojis. A storage unit payment I'd never heard of. I drove there half believing I'd find old furniture. Inside, a box of keepsakes that weren't ours, hotel key sleeves, a men's tie, Polaroids from a rooftop with her hair knotted in a way I'd never seen, and a notebook with a list titled, Things That Make Me Feel Alive. Half the list was nouns, DJs, mezcal, elevators. The other half was names. Not just Chris. 2 more. My throat closed around the dust. That night, I laid the artifacts on the table. Maddie went through all 5 stages in 5 minutes. Deny, deflect, rage, beg, brand. She slid from brazen, you snooped a storage unit? To contrite, on her knees, clutching my hands, promising she'd burn it all. I'm just confused, she whispered. I don't know who I am. My mom raised me to be wanted. I'm trying to unlearn it. Then, as if catching herself mid-honesty, she switched masks. Also, you stopped being fun. I told her Naomi had called. The name hit like a slap. You had no right, she hissed, but the fight drained out of her as I mentioned dates only his wife could know. For the first time she looked small. He said he'd leave her, she muttered. He said, I was his person. I could almost see the hook in that sentence, barbed and shiny. I hated him. I hated her. I hated that I still wanted to carry her to bed and make the world quiet. Instead, I booked a hotel for myself. As I zipped my bag, Maddie stood in the doorway, cheeks raw, lips trembling, furious and pleading at once. If you walk out, it's over, she said. Mads, I said, it was over the second you started calling betrayal normal. And I left with my overnight bag and my mother's casserole, into a night that didn't feel like mine yet, but would. Hotel carpets always smell like lemon and secrets. I ate my mom's casserole with a plastic fork, watched some reality show where strangers marry at first sight and thought, maybe I did too. At 11 p.m., Maddie called from our bedroom on speaker, voice small. I can't sleep without you. I almost said, me neither. Instead I said, tell me the truth, all of it, in order. She gave me a highlight reel. The gym coach became lunches, lunches became backseat kisses became hotels. Chris was emotional support, then once, then twice, then we lost count. The conference couple? Just vibes, she said and then added too quickly, okay once. I could hear her moving through the house while she talked, our house, opening drawers, closing them like the right object might fix the story. The next morning I booked 2 appointments. My therapist and a lawyer named Tess who came recommended by my friend Marco, who survived his own hurricane last year. Maddie texted selfies from our bed, bare shoulder, the duvet pulled to her collarbone. Can we reset? It would have melted me last month. Now it felt like propaganda. I put my phone face down and went to therapy. I told the whole messy hour like I was live streaming from a burning building. My therapist, Dr. Sue, said, grief has stages, betrayal adds aftershocks. Expect both. I cried hard and ugly for the first time, not because of a detail, but because I finally said out loud, I didn't do anything to deserve this. Saying it unclenched something in my chest I didn't know had been tight since January. Sunlight kept working. Naomi, Chris's wife, sent screenshots I didn't have. A reservation under Maddie's maiden name, a photo of Maddie's hand on Chris's tie, captioned, my favorite grip. I forwarded them to my private email and shut my laptop like it could bite. On my way back to the hotel, I stopped for toothpaste and ran into our neighbor, Denise, who blurted, tell Maddie she left her earring in my SUV. I must have looked confused because she added, after the block party? She needed a ride to the after. I dropped them 2 blocks from the W. I thanked her, tasted metal, and bought gum I didn't need. That night, Maddie oscillated like a ceiling fan on a bad setting. First, brazen. You leaving is emotional blackmail, Ethan. Then, contrition. On her knees on FaceTime, actually on her knees, saying, I'll do anything. Make a list. I'll sign it. Then, panic. Don't tell Dad. He'll kill me. Her dad, Rick, is a retired cop who still cleans his grill like a service weapon. Minutes later, Cheryl, her mom, called, slurry and earnest. Baby, your generation labels too much. In my day we called it being fun. Somewhere behind her, Ron yelled, shots. I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. Tess, the lawyer, was clear-eyed and kind. You don't have to decide today, she said, sliding a legal pad across the desk. But we gather now. We talked about accounts, the storage unit, the secret card, the receipts. Don't confront with new info, she said. Observe. Document. Decide from solid ground. She also told me to see a doctor for lapse. Get your body safe while your heart's working it out. I left with a folder that felt heavier than its paper. Back at the hotel there was a knock. Maddie. Hoodie, no makeup, hair in a knot, split lip leveled down to pink. She looked like the girl I met 7 years ago at a food truck, laughing with a mouth full of fries. Please, she said, pushing past me, the smell of her shampoo blooming in the small room. She stood close enough that the heat from her skin climbed my arm. Let me show you I'm yours. Her hand slid to my waist. For a second my body betrayed me. History is a powerful drug. Then I pictured Naomi's screenshots, the tie, the grip, the elevator kiss. I stepped back like the carpet had moved. No, I said. This isn't proof of love. It's anesthesia. She folded onto the foot of the bed, head in her hands. I don't know why I'm like this, she said into her palms. My family, everything was flirting and chaos. She looked up, eyes red, and the anger flickered on again. You think you're better than me? I shook my head. No. I just think I deserve better than this. For once she didn't have a comeback. She just nodded like a student who'd finally hit the right answer by accident, and left without slamming the door. I stared at the lemon-yellow hallway and realized the strangest thing. For the first time since the porch light on her mascara, I could breathe all the way down. 2 days after the hotel hallway standoff, we held what Cheryl melodramatically called a family summit. Translation: chili in crockpots and a grenade on the table. My parents came in church quiet. Maddie's clan arrived like a weather system. Cheryl swept in wearing sunglasses indoors, trailing Rose and Ron. Brooklyn, blue eyeliner, ironic tee that said chaotic good, was live texting someone before we sat down. Rick followed last. Retired cop gate. palms like old leather. He hugged me with an extra pat and said, "Let's do this fair." We started with ground rules. No yelling, no interrupting, no wine refills for Cheryl. I put a folder on the table, receipts, screenshots, storage unit contract, the hotel invoice with 2 guests, the Christina/Chris thread. My dad folded his arms and stared at the wallpaper like he was giving it a sobriety test. Maddie sat on the edge of her chair, jaw set, a paper cut of a woman trying to keep her story from bleeding out. "Okay," she said, bright and brave. "I made mistakes. Ethan's been distant. We hit a dry patch. I explored feelings. But I was going to come clean." Rick's eyebrow did a slow climb. I slid the folder across. The room got the weight of a thunderhead. Brooklyn leaned in, whispered, "Oof." Cheryl took off her sunglasses like we'd dimmed the house. Maddie tried to outrun the facts. "Those are out of context." Then, we were separated emotionally. Then, it was just texting mostly. I tapped the headboard photo. She flinched. Rick cleared his throat. "Matt's." Answer direct. For a second she was 8 years old again, getting caught with gum. Then the anger snapped back. "Why is everyone siding with him?" she demanded, gesturing at me like I'd forged the hotel's logo. I told them about Naomi. About Denise's SUV. About the storage unit. Cheryl immediately went for the spin cycle. "Baby, you know your father and I had our wild bit," she said to Rick, smile wobbling. Rick didn't return it. He kept reading, lips moving, until he stopped at a Venmo note, peach plus sweat, and blinked hard. "Coach," he said. "From your gym?" Maddie swallowed. "He understands me." Rick's face did something I'd never seen. Not rage, disappointment with a badge. Then the twist nobody asked for, Brooklyn muttered, "At least it wasn't Ron." The room froze. Cheryl went statue still. Ron coughed beer through his nose. My mom said, "Excuse me?" Brooklyn's eyes went wide at her own mouth. "I mean, nothing, I meant nothing." But the way Cheryl refused to look at her boyfriend became its own confession, a new skeleton rattling out of a closet I hadn't even opened. The summit was now a circus. Maddie tried one last mask. She stood, came around the table, and sank to her knees by my chair, forehead against my thigh, tears soaking my jeans. "Ethan, please," she whispered, fingers clutching. "We can fix this. I'll do therapy. I'll delete everyone. I'll change my number. Please." The room held its breath. My mother's hand found my shoulder. Rick stared at his daughter kneeling like a penitent and said low, "Mads, stop performing. Tell the truth or let him go." So I asked my 3 lawyer-approved questions, clear and simple. "When did it start? How many? Are you clean?" She gave 3 wrong answers. I knew because Tess had taught me where the dates trip people, and because Naomi's timeline was a metronome. Maddie shaved months, subtracted names, said she'd tested last year. My dad exhaled like a tire losing air. Cheryl reached for the rose and my mom slid the bottle out of reach like a magician. I didn't yell. I told them my decision in a voice I barely recognized. "We separate. Effective now. Finances are already split. I'll stay at the hotel until I find a place. She can keep the house through the lease. We'll rotate the dog." "Yeah, the dog, Harper, because in disasters you still have to figure who walks who." Cheryl started to protest image and neighbors. Rick cut in. She blew up the image. Then he looked at me steady. "Son, do what keeps you sane." Maddie stood, face blotched, that furious, brazen light back in her eyes. "You're not perfect," she said like a curse. "You're soft. You're safe. You're boring." It should have gutted me. Instead, it landed like data. She wasn't choosing me, she was choosing the story where I was the villain who bored her into a hotel. Fine. I could live as a villain in a stranger's novel if it meant I got to write my own book. After, in the driveway, Rick surprised me. He put a hand on my shoulder and said, "I love my kid. I don't like her choices. You're a good man." Then softer, "Run the laps. Change the locks on your heart." He got in his truck and left Cheryl arguing with Ron about Brooklyn's mouth. The summit dispersed like smoke. Back at the hotel, I lay on lemon sheets and stared at a ceiling I didn't own, a life I barely recognized, and felt something I hadn't in weeks. A clean edge. Not peace. Not yet. But the outline of it. Revenge looks loud in movies. In real life, mine sounded like emails and signatures. Tess filed the separation agreement. I forwarded the folder to Chris's work email with a single line, "Please cease contact with my wife." I CC'd Naomi so there was no shadow left to hide in. I also canceled the streaming logins Maddie shared with Coach, thanks Venmo notes, and returned the bracelet I found in the storage unit to the boutique with the cheery note wrong size. Refund straight to the secret card I'd already shut down. Not illegal. Just light in all the corners. I moved into a month-to-month studio over a coffee shop. The place smelled like espresso and sawdust. Harper adjusted faster than I did. She learned the Wednesday/Thursday routine without needing the shared calendar Maddie never opened. I built my new life like IKEA at 1 a.m. One hex key, lots of second guesses, something finally standing. At Dr. Sue's nudge, I joined a Saturday dawn swim group at the lake. The water was a slap that turned into an embrace. Breathe, stroke, sight the red buoy, repeat. My brain for once had a job simpler than grief. Naomi and I kept a clean line. We shared timelines, nothing else. She wrote, "Thank you for not venting at me," and I wrote back, "Thank you for not making me a villain." A week in, she told me Chris had moved out, to a friend's couch, not to Maddie. That detail shouldn't have mattered, but it unclenched something I didn't know was still gripping my ribs. I don't know if Maddie expected him to pick her. I do know she texted me, "Are you happy now?" at 2:11 a.m., which sounded less like sadness and more like withdrawal. The test came back clean. Relief hit so hard I had to sit down on the studio floor and let Harper climb into my lap like we were both 5. I texted the results to Maddie with a simple, "You too." She sent a thumbs up and then 3 hearts. I didn't reply. Instead, I went to the second night of my beginner ceramics class. Clay doesn't lie. It records every tremor in your hands. My first bowl slumped like it was tired for me. The instructor patted my shoulder and said, "We call that a wabi-sabi win." Here's the part one didn't expect. Maddie's world started leaking. Brooklyn called, voice shaking in a way that made me put my mug down. "Ethan." "Mom kicked Ron out," she said, then added, so quietly I almost missed it, "He kissed me after the 4th. I told her. She called me a drama queen. The summit slip wasn't a slip. It was a flare. Suddenly the chaos that shaped Maddie had a sharper outline. Lines from generations where boundaries were punchlines. Compassion isn't the same as permission, but it explains the accent. I told Brooklyn I believed her. She sobbed, then laughed, then asked if Harper could come over. We took the dog to the park and threw a ball until our arms ached. Maddie kept trying on masks. One night she showed up at my ceramic studio in a leather jacket and hope. "I signed up for the next class," she said, like a rom-com reveal. Everyone watched me like I was a wildlife documentary. I wiped my hands, stepped into the hall and said gently, "You don't fix a cracked pot by spinning faster. You start over with new clay." "I'm new clay." She smiled the old dangerous smile. "You're not built for single life," she said. "You're soft." I surprised us both by laughing. "Soft floats," I said, thinking of the lake, the red buoy, the line back to shore. That night, I made a list on a napkin at the coffee shop downstairs. Things that make me feel alive. Sunrise swims. Clay under my fingernails. Texts from Dad that say, "Proud of you, son." Mom's Sunday lasagna. Marco dragging me to pick up soccer even though I run like a guy carrying a piano. None of it was bright like hotels and elevator kisses. All of it was warm like a porch light that belongs to me. The last message from Maddie that week was a photo of our couch with the caption, "Miss this." I stared at the empty dent where I used to sit and realized I didn't miss the furniture. I missed the guy who believed his living room was safe. Turns out he's not gone. He just moved upstairs above a coffee shop with a dog who finally sleeps through the night. 2 weeks into the studio over a coffee shop life, my phone lit up with an email that read like a plot twist written by HR. Subject: External complaint received. Turns out forwarding Chris the receipts at his work address did what sunlight always does. It showed mold. He wasn't just older and divorced from the gym. He was a vendor on Maddie's account. Conflict of interest, fraternization, the whole buzzword buffet. Naomi texted, "They're reviewing his role." Maddie texted, "You ruined his career." I typed, deleted, and finally sent, "He made those choices." Then I muted the thread and went to the lake. Revenge is supposed to taste sweet. Mostly it tasted like chalk. Dr. Sue said, "Justice isn't joy, it's alignment." Fine. I aligned. I swam. I threw clay. I took Harper to the Saturday market where a woman selling hot honey called my wobble bowl charming, and traded me a jar for it like I was a real person again. Then the last avalanche. Brooklyn called from a parking lot, crying and furious. She'd reported Ron to Rick. It blew up the family chat. Cheryl called me slurring, "You poisoned my daughters." I told her Brooklyn did the bravest thing I've seen this year. Rick texted 5 minutes later, "I've got Brooke. Restraining order tomorrow." In the separate thread he added, "You were right to walk." It's wild what validation from a quiet man can do to your spine. Maddie didn't handle the fallout, she detonated. She posted a Notes app essay about emotional abuse and controlling narratives, tagged nobody and everybody. Friends sent screenshots like weather alerts. I didn't respond. Rick did. He commented a single period under her post, "Cop 4, stop." She deleted it in an hour and texted me, "Please." 10 minutes later, "You win." 30 minutes after that, "You're a monster." It was like watching a storm cycle through radar colors. The real tragic twist arrived on a Thursday. I was loading Harper into my car when Rick called, "She's at the lake." I found Maddie on the dock I use for sunrise laps, sweatshirt, bare feet, mascara like smoke. Not drunk. Worse, empty. "I don't know how to be a person," she said without looking at me. I sat beside her, left 3 boards of space, hands on my knees so I wouldn't reach for her. We watched 2 teenagers dare each other into the cold water and come up shrieking. Life kept happening, rude and hopeful. "I loved you," I said. "I think a part of me always will. But loving you started to mean abandoning me." She nodded, slow. "I learned chaos as a love language," she said, and it was the most honest thing I'd ever heard her say. Then she turned heavy-eyed and whispered, "If I jump, will you save me?" And here's the shame and the grace. I told the truth. "I'll call Rick. I'll call 911. I won't be the rope anymore." She cried without sound. I walked her to Rick's truck when he pulled up, put her in her father's world and stepped back. He met my eyes over the hood and gave the smallest nod a man can give and still be seen. That night, Tess filed the final packet. I booked a long weekend in Santa Fe, ceramics workshop, red dirt, a sky big enough to put my smallness in. I packed light, swimsuit, wheel apron, a dog-eared book I'd been pretending to read for months. Before bed I wrote 3 lines on a sticky note and stuck it to the mirror. "I did not cause this. I cannot cure it. I will not carry it." In the morning, I drove east into a sunrise that made the highway look like a promise. Santa Fe looked like a postcard someone forgot to put back in the rack. Red earth, cobalt sky, air that smelled like dust and sage. The ceramics workshop sat behind a gallery with a tin roof that pinged when the sun moved. Day 1, my instructor, silver braid, ink knuckles, watched my bowl collapse and said, "Good. Now you know where the wall is." I wrote that down like scripture. Nights, I ate green chili enchiladas and let the heat remind me I could feel something that wasn't panic. Updates trickled in whether I wanted them or not. Naomi texted, "He resigned," then later, "I'm okay. Yoga and bad TV." Rick sent a photo of Brooklyn holding Harper's leash with a court paper tucked under her arm. The caption just said, "Safe." Cheryl checked herself into a spa that was probably a rehab with better towels. Maddie, through Rick, started an intensive program. Therapy, no contact, a phone that has to sleep in the kitchen. I'm not the rope, but I'm also not rooting for gravity. I want her to learn the alphabet without chaos. The decree came through while I was centering a lump of clay, final, stamped, the legal version of a period. I put my forehead to my wrists and breathed until the wheels slowed. Not joy. Not grief. Something quieter, like a field after hail. Wrecked, yes, but also sky. Back home, the little studio over the coffee shop that no longer felt like a waiting room, I framed 3 things on the wall: a crooked bowl from week 1, the swim cap from my first dawn lap, and a photo my dad took of me and Mom on their porch, both of them leaning in like bookends. I mailed a copy to Rick with a note, "Thanks for the steady." He texted back a thumbs-up emoji, which, from Rick, is basically a sonnet. If you're reading this on our /relationship_advice because your porch light just lit up on someone you thought was yours, here's my cheat sheet from the fire. Name it. If your gut says curb didn't cause the bruise, believe your gut and check the receipts. Sunlight, not screaming. Document. Forward what matters to a folder with a boring name. Consequences aren't cruelty. Separate money, test your body, find a lawyer who speaks human. Open isn't a time machine. Don't let someone legalize retroactive betrayal by calling it modern. Forgiveness without change is anesthesia. It wears off. Find water and clay or whatever makes your hands busy and your breath long. Last night I walked Harper past our old street. The porch light was on. For a second I saw the smear of mascara, the bar stamp, the word normal, hovering like a mosquito. Then Harper tugged me forward toward the coffee shop, where the barista knows my order and the kiln room smells like rain. I'm not healed, but I am not lost. I am soft and soft floats. And that, apparently, is enough to start a new map.